Are you ready? Hey, everybody.
Hey, Pop.
Hello, everybody. People in the back.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to the Inner Loop.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to the Inner Loop.
Without further ado.
Okay, so without further ado, we're going to get started.
We should get started. We're
Yeah.
rolling. I'm rolling.
We're going to get started. Welcome to the Inner Loop Radio. I'm Rachel Kuntz.
And I'm Courtney Sexton.
Thank you for joining us.
If you haven't already, please remember to subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and check out our website at theinnerlooplit.org.
For any new listeners out there, here on the Inner Loop Radio, we delve into all things creative writing, whether that be inspiration or craft, publishing or editing, how to make a living, or just how we all sit down each day in front of an empty page.
Sad. But we invite local writers and friends on the show to talk about their writing journey, what inspires them, or to delve deeper into craft.
On today's show, we want to talk about publishing in journals and magazines. So let me give you a hypothetical. Say a publisher gets 1,000 submissions for 50 slots in their magazine.
Okay, hold on. I'm doing the mental math.
Yep. 40 of which are reserved for poetry. Poetry shorter.
Yeah.
That's an acceptance rate of 4% for poetry and 1% for prose.
That's like
rough.
Harvard can't even beat that, right?
Add to that the statistic that slush pile submissions only account for 1 to 2% of all published work.
So non-legacies.
Right?
Right.
Many journals prefer to solicit work from writers they know or somebody with name recognition, and that percentage becomes even more minuscule, dismal, if you will. So, how do you win the magazine publishing game?
You buy a lottery ticket. This is what I'm saying. You can't win if you don't play.
Actually, when I was researching this episode, there was a lot of that.
Right?
You can't win if you don't play.
It's true. Just throw stuff against the wall. Just do it.
Yeah. And I feel like, it's often compared to a lottery.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to take it personally when you get rejected.
For sure.
I feel like right when
please.
Right when we graduated from our MFA,
Yes.
Everybody was telling you like, get ready for rejection.
Yeah.
Rejection is normal. And I was like, yeah, but my stuff
but I'm
is so good that no one can turn it down.
I'm different. I'm special. I'm the 1%. I mean, not that 1% for sure. No, but
not financial 1%.
No,
In fact, I'm
no.
like the bottom 99. But yeah, but it's not even about that.
No.
And it's really hard to wrap your head around the fact that it really has nothing to do with how good your work is.
No.
And it has a little bit to do with that, but that only gets you into the top 30%.
I feel like if you're like good enough to know about literary magazine submissions, you're good enough. Right? Like that's like what it
Not
gets you.
necessarily.
No, right? Like I mean in terms of skill, like what your skill gets you,
Yeah.
right? In terms of walking into the door. But I don't know. Yeah, I also remember people being like, oh, personalized rejections are the best. It means they read something and they actually looked at it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but that's like first loser. Like what? No.
I still love personalized
I mean, I do
rejections.
too, but I think that's
I
because
need
that
that
was like
little
drilled
boost.
into us to be like, no, you're not gonna win. But here's
We
your
liked it. It was
consolation
nice.
prize.
Yeah, I'll take a consolation prize over nothing
Yeah, that's
over and
fair.
over and over.
That's fair. I don't know. I think one trick I've found is to like find a journal that really, and I know this sounds obvious, but like really, really aligns with your type of writing. Get one piece published, and then you can just like submit to them and they're like similar squad over and over. And
Yeah.
that's where I feel like I've found success.
Yeah. I mean, so I actually won a literary
Yes,
contest.
you did. Yeah. What
which-
am I talking about?
Talk
You
about the
have-
lottery. Talk about winning the lottery. It definitely felt like winning the
Yeah.
lottery. But I will say that it was the first time that I made, first of all, I took the best story I've ever written. And I
Yeah.
knew it was.
Yeah.
And I knew it was solid. After 10 years, literally
I was
10
gonna say you
years
worked that story.
of editing it
Yeah.
over and over and over after working with amazing people at Sarah
Yeah.
Lawrence on the story. So it was literally, I knew it was my best story. but it was the first time that I like made a concerted effort to be like, I am putting this story out there to as many journals as I
Everyone.
can stand.
Yeah.
Right. So I spent like $350
That's the other thing.
on
It's expensive.
contest entry fees.
Yeah.
And one January I was like just blasting it out to all of them.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is actually what helps me the most with rejection.
Yeah.
Is if I have the story out to other magazines, then when rejection comes from certain
You're like, there's
magazines,
still a chance.
I'm like, it's still
fine.
out there. It's still out there. It can still happen. So anyway, then that ended up
Yeah.
getting me the contest win, which was
Which is
pure
awesome.
luck.
No, I mean, it was good.
I mean, it was good. And then it was
And
like, and my listeners can't see me doing my hand
Yeah,
motions,
yeah, yeah.
but there's like 90% of good. It gets me up to the 10%.
Yeah.
And then that less 10%, it was pure luck.
Well, so then what are those factors, right? Like, it's like, who's reading it?
Yeah.
Who
Who's reading it?
I mean, obviously,
The
a lot of
magazine
time
it's
it's
going
like,
in.
who knows someone, but like, we don't know anyone. I don't
No.
know anyone.
Yeah.
Not at that level.
No.
No.
We know our
Well,
next guest.
We do. Yeah, that's true. All right. But it's like really comes down to like who's the reader.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe someone else knows more than we
Yeah.
do.
Well, speaking of our next
Yes,
guest,
yeah.
let's bring her in. So we're gonna get more on magazine publishing from an actual editor of an actual magazine,
cool.
not us amateurs. Up next, we'll hear from the first Black openly trans woman to helm a major literary publication. Stay tuned.
Let's gather. Gather, please.
If you can gather in.
Gather round for the second half. And we're gonna get started.
We're gonna get started.
We'll get started. We're officially getting started. Not teasing you this time. Welcome back to the Interloop Radio. We've been discussing getting published online, and now we'd like to welcome our good friend, Denne Michele Norris. She is the editor-in-chief of Electric Literature, winner of the 2022 Whiting Literary Magazine Prize. And as we mentioned before, she is the first Black openly trans woman to helm a major literary publication, a 2021 Out 100 honoree. Her writing has been supported by McDowell, Ten House, and the Cambilio Center for African American Fiction, and appears in McSweeney's, American Short Fiction, and Zora. Holy shit. She is co-host of the critically acclaimed podcast Food for Thought, and her debut novel, When the Harvest Comes, is forthcoming from Random House. Woo!
Woo-hoo.
All of that. And most importantly, Denne was by our sides as we all braved the MFA process at Sarah Lawrence College more than a decade ago.
Shh, don't tell people it's that long ago.
Welcome, Denne.
Oh my gosh, hi. Thanks so much for having me. I still cannot believe that it's been that many years. It blows my mind.
It really blows my mind.
Yeah,
I feel
we're
like
just not gonna
I
talk
literally
about that.
woke up one day and 10 years had gone by.
Yeah.
I was like, what
Yeah.
have I been doing?
Writing a book, it's fine.
Yeah. It does take all that time, though. It does.
But look at everything that you
Yeah.
accomplished over the past 10 years. You're killing it. So let's jump right in.
Yes.
Denne, you told Publishers Weekly that you once thought of Electric Lit as a, quote, fearless renegade space, and that you were eager to, quote, rekindle that radical energy when you took over. So can you tell us more about Electric Lit and how that goal has been going so far as you've been leading it?
Which I love that, by the way, because I feel you. Like Electric Lit is in your mind, like radical, right?
I feel like it really is. I mean, well, so the basic overview is Electric Literature is a digital magazine publisher. We publish short work online. And our mission is to make literature more exciting, relevant, and inclusive. We've been around since 2009. We have over 3 million readers annually, and we publish everything from poetry to essays to flash fiction to longer form short stories, author interviews, and book lists. And so we're quite,
Wow.
we're a small team, but we're quite busy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think when in Electric Lit's earliest days, it felt like this sort of fearless renegade space where I think a lot of more experimental work was being published.
Mhm.
I think that was a time when even what was happening at journals was a little bit more structured, a little bit more strict in terms of just the kind of work that they were publishing. And Electric Lit was out here taking risks and publishing new writers. And, our profile managed to get big, and we've continued to publish amazing work for all of these years. But every editor-in-chief ends up kind of having the opportunity to kind of shape the magazine in their own image and do what they want to do. And so the funny thing is that even though I said that in that interview and I felt that way, and even though in like my first few days of working there, when Halima Marcus, the executive director, and I would have conversations, she would say that, like, a huge part of the reason why you got this job is because we loved your editorial vision. In the interviews, I felt like I didn't know yet specifically what any of that meant. And I knew that my job at the forefront of this sort of venerated iconic journal was to spend the first year just understanding the basics of the job, paying attention to who we were and what we were doing. And as I grew my comfort, I could then start putting my stamp on things. And so now that I'm in my second year, I'm starting to do that in different ways. And there's lots of ideas that are flying around. But the biggest thing for me is that we just recently launched a series called Both and it's an essay series that centers the voices of trans and gender nonconforming writers of color. And this happened because in the first couple of months of my working there were some things that were happening in the trans world. There was a controversy around the author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and at the same time, Dave Chappelle had put out his comedy special, which really took aim at trans folks. And these were big talking points, and they stayed in the news cycle for quite a while, but there were rarely trans people actually included in the conversation. So yeah. And it just drove me crazy. I was so tired of it. And I thought, okay, well, I can't get a trans person of color booked on CNN. I don't have that much power. But I can. I was like,
we don't want CNN anyway. It's fine.
I mean, truly, that's probably for the best given what's happening with CNN right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was like, what I can do is help trans writers of color publish in a place where their words will be seen by agents, by editors. I can use my position to help build a pipeline so that when this happens again in 3 years, there are more trans people of color who are visibly talking about our own lives and our own stories, and who hopefully have the opportunity to advocate for ourselves in those conversations. So that's a very long-winded answer. But I guess the point is that I think what's radical about Electric Lit is that we are completely independent. And so we get to decide what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. We have complete control. I think that's really important in the literary magazine world.
Yeah, that's
and we have that power, and I think that feels what's radical. And then what we choose to do with that power, I think, is really exciting.
Yeah, that is very exciting. And I definitely saw those. I myself am a member of Electric Lit, so I saw those emails going through about Both and I was very excited. And speaking of which, there's also been a bunch of emails flying around about this new creative nonfiction category, which Courtney and I are nonfiction writers. So you have to tell us about that.
Yeah. So this is so funny. This is one of those things that came up in that first year that I was working there. And I think, Electric Lit had kind of gotten to this point where our essays, our nonfiction offerings were centered around blending personal narrative with critical analysis of some sort of cultural property, a book or a film or a TV show or perhaps visual art or an album or something. And that's interesting and all well and good. And I think part of the reason why that happened is because Electric Lit came up really during the boom of the internet think piece.
Absolutely.
And we were an early internet publisher. And so, those pieces could go viral and say really important things and get people to think about things in new ways. And so I think that's sort of how that happened. And that's all well and good. And I love those essays, but I'm primarily the essay editor at Electric Lit. And I was like, I want to expand the purview of what we're doing. I kind of always had that in mind, simply because there are so many beautiful nonfiction pieces of writing that don't interact with a TV show. And we would sometimes get those pieces and I would bring them to our editorial meeting and my staff would say, well, that's not really an EL essay. And in my head, I'm like, well,
It should
It
be.
could be.
it could be. Like, it could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Let's not necessarily reject it just because of that. And it felt sort of arbitrary to me. And so I just started thinking about this, and actually the creation of both and, because those essays are not, largely speaking, analyzing cultural property, that was part of my experiment in terms of how I might be able to bring this kind of work into electric lit. And so I'll just say that we were in a board meeting at the end of last year, and one of our board members, Meredith Toulousan, we were having a conversation sort of about what constitutes an electric literature essay. And we were talking about how we were realizing that we're really, like, part of our place in the world of literary journals is to be an advocate for new and emerging writers. That's really kind of our bread and butter, and we want to talk about that more, and we want to emphasize that more. And so she said, well, she was like, I'm not sure where that idea that an electric literature essay has to analyze cultural property came from, but I think that would be a bit of a barrier to new writers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we kind of made the decision then that we were going to find a way to do this. And then when the news of Catapult closing happened, we were like, we need to do this, and we need to do this now. Because I remember the day that was announced, I got text messages from so many friends who are nonfiction writers, and they were like, where are we going to publish? Like, all of our outlets are shutting down, which is true. And so that gave it a sense of urgency. And so then Halima and I are like, all right, we need to do this, and we need to do this now. And we've been sort of working on it since. And it's like, it's complicated. It's not the easiest thing to do. We have to build a whole new, we have to bring in more people to do this work, because I know we're going to get flooded with submissions. We have to build a process and a system, which is not difficult to do necessarily, but it wasn't like we could immediately be like, we're opening these
tomorrow.
up right now.
Yeah.
Right.
We have to like set it up to be successful. But we're taking that time, and we will be opening for submissions on June 1st for the creative nonfiction.
Amazing.
So.
Well, I'm super excited because I know nothing about pop culture. I live under a rock. I have my whole life. So when I became a member, I was like, ooh, I should submit. And then I was like looking around, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to fit in anywhere in here.
Well, and for me, I mean, like, I have an art history background, and so some of my early writing did have some of those elements to it, but I've been I've been out of that space in such a way that I'm like, there are just people who know more, are more tuned in, and like would write a better piece in that realm than I would.
Yeah,
So, like,
we
it
all have
doesn't-
imposter syndrome on how much knowledge we have.
right. But I mean, like, no. But one of the things, and Dan, this just speaks to what you're saying, like, in my mind, electric lit is accessible, right? And partially because of that, starting in the kind of digital revolution, being a digital magazine, like, that opened so many doors, and to stay committed to that space and like actually be taken seriously and revered is just huge. So,
Yeah, and it's nice to hear how it's evolving to
yeah.
continue that mission, as you said. So I'm going to be submitting now.
Yeah.
So why don't you
Yes.
give us a little peek behind the curtain? Our listeners, we did a survey of our listeners, and they really want to hear more about publishing and the process. So I wonder if you could just kind of take us through like how a submission gets from the slush pile to publication. What's that process look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple of paths that a writer can take. But the most common path, I would say, is, so if you're if you're doing nonfiction, if you're doing an essay or an interview or a book list, then generally what you're going to do is you're going to send us a pitch of what you're trying to write, and we never are not taking pitches, and I get pitches at all times of the day. In 2021, on Christmas Day, I got 10 pitches. I was not checking
Wow.
email, but I got 10 pitches.
Because people
and
are
I was
like, I don't want to deal with my family right now. I'm going to do this instead.
Yup. And I'm like, do what you need to do, but you're going to get my away message. So we do everything by pitch. And what happens is I read every pitch. I don't respond to every pitch. When I started the job, that was an ambition of mine, but it's just impossible. I mean, I get thousands of pitches in a year. But I read every pitch, and I bring them to our editorial meeting where we discuss whichever pitches I think have potential. And that's a really important part of the process,
Mm.
because what might happen is a piece that I don't think is quite right for us, or that I don't think is quite right for me, another editor might look at it and be like, I would like to edit this. I think I have the vision to make this what we need it to be.
Yeah.
And it opens up opportunity for writers. The other possibility is that we might discuss a pitch that has some sort of element of something we're looking for, but we're not sure if this is the right writer to do it. But maybe
Mhm.
we will take some element of this and commission another writer that we know potentially that we think can deliver what we need them to deliver. There are all these different like ways in which the conversation basically just opens up more opportunity and helps clarify whether we should take a piece or not take a piece.
Mm.
And so we have a robust conversation for usually a little over an hour about a number of pitches, and then I'll go back and contact writers and give them feedback. And it can be anything from an emphatic yes, when can you get me a first draft, um, to no thank you, or it can be like, I don't think this is quite right. Here are my thoughts on how you can make it stronger. I hope you'll send it to me. I hope you'll do these things and send it to me again. But I understand if you just want to publish it as is somewhere else, but as is, it's not going to work for us for
Mm.
whatever reason. And usually when I do that, writers will say, no, I want to publish with you guys. I'll go work on it and bring it back, which is really exciting to hear. And so that's the process for most things. And even for recommended reading or the commuter, where they have their own staffs as well, you submit. With those, you submit through Submittable, but you submit, it gets read by readers. And then if it goes up each level, then eventually it comes to their editorial meeting that they also have weekly, and they'll discuss it and make a decision. The response times for those are typically much longer. And that's how the new creative nonfiction program is going to run as well. People will submit full drafts via Submittable, and my sort of additional team of readers will read them. And then if they get up to a high enough level, they'll get to me into the meeting and we'll discuss them. Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about that sort of that avenue where it goes up the chain and then it gets on your desk. What are you looking for when you read a creative nonfiction piece? Like, do you know within the first two
I know, I'm always
sentences if you
like-
like this piece, or like what is the usual way that goes?
It's really interesting. So my training, as you know, is as a fiction writer, and that's most of my editorial experience. And so what I've found is that functionally speaking, I have to think about these things a little bit differently. And so with fiction, I might read it and be like, this is not right. And I might know very quickly, yes or no. With nonfiction, that's rarely the case. I might say, oh, I really love this voice, or I love this aspect of this, or not. But I usually have to get much further in a submission, because I have to understand how it works in the world. I don't know if I fully understand why that is, but I think that with nonfiction, it's not divorced from reality or very real consequences. And it's not that fiction is necessarily either, but with fiction, it can be, because you can just say this is fiction. And when we're talking about nonfiction, very often we're talking about just real world things, real world people, real world circumstances. And so how something functions ends up mattering in a different way, sort of above and beyond the specifics of the craft. And so I have to think about it differently. But that being said, I absolutely am always looking for work that surprises me, work that's innovative. I think with nonfiction on a craft level, very often writers don't tend to access all the same sort of creative tools that they might access if they were fiction writers, because we often get locked up in writing things chronologically and writing things exactly as they happen. And so people
Right.
often think that some of the tools that are at their disposal are not at their disposal.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for something that's surprising on a craft level and a content level, something that sort of grabs my heart and won't let go. And I think, again, because of this new general creative nonfiction direction that we're going, I will see more work that does that, and I'll be able to lean into that sort of creative side of things a little bit more than I have been to this point.
Yeah, that's so
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
exciting. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you mean about grabbing
The
your
grabbing,
heart
yeah, I
and won't let go.
love, I love, like, I have experienced the grab your heart part, but the don't let go really like is the kicker, right? I love that expression. That's very, yes.
So, as you mentioned, you are yourself are a fiction writer. So let's kind of switch gears and talk about your own experience with publishing. You have a book forthcoming from Random House, which is so exciting.
Woo!
Congratulations. Tell us what that was like.
Whew. Well, first of all, 10 and a half years of work I started that
Yeah.
book the summer between our 2 years at Sarah Lawrence. Although I didn't admit that it was a novel
Right.
Right.
until we
Of
were in the
course.
We
second
don't admit
semester
any
of our
of these
second year. We
things.
don't
No.
admit it. We're like, no, no, no. I
No.
kept saying this is a long, short story. And in my workshop, the first semester of our second year, people kept talking about it as a novel, and they'd roll their eyes and be like, I'm sorry, I mean this story. And they'd put in quotation mark because I was like not ready to say that it was a novel.
Uh-huh.
So the writing process itself has been really long, but basically it's been sort of magical, and I have felt extremely lucky. The first thing that happened was that I was able to publish an excerpt of it in Apogee Journal in
Nice.
2016. And at the same time, I used that excerpt to apply to Tin House, where I got in
Mm.
and won a scholarship to go to Tin House to be in a novel workshop with Alexander Chee. And then that fall, I
Wow.
applied to McDowell with that excerpt as well, and it got me in all those places.
Wow.
Um,
Ooh,
and so I had
I just wanna pause you there and say, look how that one
One piece.
section, how
Yep.
hard it worked for you and your career. I just want listeners to
Oh,
take note
Just
yep.
take note.
that
Find
you
that
can keep
piece.
using that same
Yes.
piece to move you forward. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh yes, and there's more to that. So I got into those places where I had the chance to work and to write and to meet a few mentors and all of that. And then the piece that I published in Apogee Journal ended up in an anthology edited by Jennifer Baker called Everyday People: The Color of Life. And that anthology ended up on the desks of book editors. It was
Wow.
published by Atria, which is an imprint of Simon and Schuster. And editors are always reading and looking for people. And so it ended up on the desks of some editors, and editors were then interested in me and reaching out and were like, do you have a book project? I see you're working on a novel. And I was like, yes, in fact, that is part of the novel. And they wanted to see pages. And so then my mentors were like, get an
Amazing.
agent now.
Get some
If people
pages.
I
want to
was
see
gonna say,
pages.
I
Yeah.
also want to pause you there
Yeah.
because this is like a little different than some people do it. You found an editor first and then got an agent, which is a little
Yeah.
out of order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the editors who were interested are not the editors who so in some
Ended up
cases we didn't even
accepted it.
send my book to them for various
Sure.
reasons.
Ah,
It's been years, people leave the industry,
Yep.
things change. But yes, it was true. It had editors, because my book wasn't finished, it was only the fact that editors wanted to see pages that everyone was like, now you need an
Now you
agent.
need.
Like you need an
mm,
agent. I know the book isn't done, but get an agent. And so I found a wonderful agent. I had already had some agents reach out to me, so I didn't go through the query process. I just like contacted them and I was like, I'm ready. Like people want to see it. Met with all of them. I really loved one and chose him. And then he waited patiently for 4 years before I was ready to send him a
wow.
draft of the book.
That's
Yeah.
And so we
You
sent
can't rush fine art,
you
okay?
can't rush art. And I tell people this all the time. You have to, and I think this is really important because for me, all the time that I've taken has only benefited me.
Yeah.
Like if I had finished the
Totally.
book earlier, I wouldn't have had the visibility I have. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to probably sell the book for the amount of money that I had, that I was able to like it. Everything worked out better. And we actually tried to sell the book early in 2021 on a partial manuscript. My agent was like, I think maybe if we can sell it, we'll get some money in your pocket. It'll be easier for you to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And we went on a round of submissions. It was very hard to sell because it wasn't finished, but a lot of editors really loved it. And then one editor did make an offer, but
Mm.
that editor was like, I advise you to wait because
Wow.
given the
Okay.
interest, this will be a competitive sale when you finish the book. So just go finish the book and you'll
Yeah,
get more money.
amazing.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so I did that. I waited a year and a half and finished the book, and then we sent it out in the fall of last year. And that was a quick process. I think it sold in about 10 days. It was a preempt,
Oh
which
my
means
goodness.
that before you go to an auction, the publisher's like, we want you to take it off the table.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll give
Mhm.
you a decent amount of money to do that so that
Yeah.
you won't even
They have to make you an offer you can't
Right.
refuse,
Right.
right?
they have to make you a really great exactly they have to make you a
Yeah.
really great offer. And so that was really amazing because going on submission is really hard. I don't know how writers
Yeah.
do it, and I was losing my mind. um and it finished and we sold, and now I'm just in the process of working on edits.
Amazing.
Dan, I'm having like some triggering moments. I'm in the process of trying to buy my first home, and it's like a very similar process. It's like I met my agent 4 years ago. She waited until I actually had my shit together. Like, yeah. So no, and it's like you got to put an offer down. You got to do it right. You got to. I'm like, now I have to do this with my writing too. I don't know. This is just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that story because I feel like, it really demonstrates how
Yeah.
there are multiple avenues to get to the same destination.
Yeah.
Like you can, go through the slush pile, you can go through contacts, you can get an agent first, or you can
Mhm.
start publishing things in online publications like Electric Lit and get attention that way.
Mhm.
And if one way isn't working for you, then you can try a different
Switch
avenue,
tactics,
you know,
right?
like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had an agent tell me like nobody can like sell a memoir from a nobody.
Yeah, that
And I'm
was
like, okay, I'll go
ridiculous.
be somebody.
Like, fine.
I mean,
Here's a contest win for you. Thanks so much.
but also that's not true. Like it
Right.
frustrates me when agents say these things because usually the unspoken part is no, you can't sell a memoir from a nobody, but someone else
Right?
can.
Mhm.
I have a friend who, I mean, she was on her third agent by the time she sold her first book, which was a collection of short stories. But one of the last agent that she fired was like couldn't sell it, wouldn't sell it. She fired that agent, got another agent. It sold in a day, a collection of short stories. Like there are no
Wow.
rules in this industry, and
Yeah.
so if a person believes in you and loves your work enough, then they will figure out a way to make it happen. People don't sell books, novels on a partial manuscript, and I had the opportunity to take a deal on
Yeah.
Right.
a
Yeah.
2-book deal on 2 unfinished books
Wow.
because that were like there are no rules, and so you just have to sort of trust your instincts and as you make your way in the world, pay attention to how things are happening for you,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
think the path is sort of being created around you, and then you just have to sort of stay on that path. Or if it's not working for you, then you have to get off and try a different path.
Mhm.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, it drives me crazy because it's like that's just not true. Like there are
Yeah.
no rules here. It's
Yeah.
the publishing industry is the Wild West, and anything can happen.
On that note, I would love to hear an excerpt from the
Yeah.
forthcoming book
Same.
if we can.
Yes, I'm just gonna read a scene from actually the opening. So the book is called When the Harvest Comes. And since
Great
this is the
title.
first season, thank you.
Yeah.
And I guess since this is the first scene, I don't have to give you any context. I'll
Sure.
just start. 1. Someone will come. Sirens will sound in the distance. Lights will rise from darkness like seraphs, dancing red and blue. Salvation will be brought by men sent from God. These men will come from the east. There is a campus not too far in that direction, a satellite of the state university. The men will move as quickly as possible along the highway, over black ice, close to the barrier that divides east and west. Tread marks will lead them to an indentation in the guardrail scratched with white paint. The men, always moving, will jump down from their trucks, rubber boots clomping to the pavement with the strength of hooves. One of them will wonder aloud how that white car got all the way down the hill by the quarry. You can hardly see it, he will say with his hand at attention. His eyes will strain under the swirling clouds that block the moon, that mute the stars. Another, braver, will lead them over the guardrail, hooves romping easily down the hill like broncos. The men will follow the path cut by the car as it flipped over and over and landed on its caved-in hard top. The Reverend remained strapped in his seat, upside down, his nose only inches from the ground, unable to move. His Toyota crashed into a tree with such force that several elderly branches, heaving from the weight of the snow, sought relief. They broke from the trunk, tumbled through the wintry air, and landed on the overturned car. Periodically it creaked, warning him. At some point he knows the car will give under the excess weight, but by then he will be saved. The men will have come and gone, and in between, ripped him free. They will come shouting into their walkie-talkies, demanding backup, cursing, not caring if their words offend him. The glare from their flashlights will find him, then blind him. Someone will shout for the men at the top of the hill to aim their headlights at the quarry, give them some light. The Toyota's lights will be extinguished by then. The battery will have died. Once there is light, the Reverend will see how the snow has frozen beneath him, how every window has shattered, how the car he gave his 16-year-old son 8 years ago crumpled around him as though it were nothing more than a toy, a matchbox model like the ones Davis used to play with. The youngest, newest trooper will kneel as close to the car as possible. He will extend his arm through the broken window. He will shine his flashlight into the Reverend's face, then up and down his body. Are you hurt? He will ask. Davis? The Reverend will ask the man. Is it you? Sir, are you hurt? Can you move? The trooper's voice will ring with easy authority over more sirens sounding in the distance, coming their way, over the slow rumble of traffic that will begin to pile up, though it's after midnight and the roads are barren, over the chatter of the Reverend's teeth, for by this time he will be delirious and so cold that his words will be nearly unintelligible. The Reverend will try to turn his head until he can see the trooper's eyes. He will try, but he will fail. He will know that the trooper's voice is not his son's voice. The trooper's hands, large, pale, and strong, are not his son's hands. He will wonder if these are the hands that will keep him alive, bring him to safety. He will wonder if safety is what Davis sees in that man, the white man, the one he plans to marry. He will wonder if Davis ever saw these things in him. Sir, don't worry. We're going to get you out of here. Sonny boy, he will say. Everything is going to be fine. I need my son. I need to see my son, he will say. Your son isn't here. He's safe. It's only you in this car. The trooper will consider the fact that he too would be thinking of his son if it were him trapped in that seat, hanging upside down, waiting for help to come. With his free arm, he will slowly reach his hand through the broken window until he can gently press his palm against the driver's shoulder. He will do his best to look the driver in the eye. Sir, we're going to get you out of here. I'll stop there.
No, don't stop.
Tingles all over my body.
Oh my God.
Oh, thank
Wow.
I'm so excited to read that.
you.
I love the tension
Oh
and
my
the
God,
beauty,
so
and I
much.
just so feels like so like the relationship between the father and the son is already just feels so
There.
tangible.
Oh, thank
Exciting.
you. Thank
Yes,
you.
so exciting. Thank
I
you. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I just like it. The opening, very opening too. Like it has this otherworldly, like space age feel to it, right? Like it's like or like apocalyptic, which like for
Yeah,
this
and the
individual it
branches being
is,
weighed
but
down
like
by the
I was like, where are
snow.
we going? What is happening? Like yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, one thing I'll just say that's odd is when I wrote that scene, I had just read a novel and it completely transformed how I wanted to do language in my novel. And I was like, I
Yeah.
have to start over again. Like I have to completely
Oh,
start over. And I wrote that scene first, and I knew immediately. I was like, that's
this
the opening of this book. Like I knew
Nice.
it.
Yeah,
so cool.
love it.
Well, congrats. That's so yeah,
Thank you.
great.
And thank you so much for just this whole amazing conversation. I already
Yeah,
feel like I've learned so much. I know our listeners have.
absolutely.
And
And for being
it's
so
been great.
open and
Yeah.
candid and really sharing that process because that's the other thing about submissions, right? It's like this barrier, the mystique of like what happens
Mm-hmm.
behind the closed door, like you can't know. So we really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Of course, I'm happy to. It does feel mysterious, and I think people often think that there's something more sinister going on, but
Yeah.
it's just a lot of overworked people.
Yeah.
Like always, I feel like being an editor, I'm always behind. I'm always behind. Like
Mhm.
there's no catching up. And I think every editor I know, I think feels that way, and it's just like we want to read people's work and publish it, and it's as simple as that, and it's a labor of love because most people don't get paid. I get
Right.
paid, this is my full-time job, but most people don't
Right.
get paid,
Totally.
so we just do it because we love the work.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
all just people who
Yeah,
love
we
to
get
read.
it.
Okay, you can catch Denne Michele Norris over at Electric Lit on the Food for Thought podcast, and keep an eye out for her forthcoming novel, When the Harvest Comes. Den, thank you again so much for this wonderful discussion. Can you stick around for a little trivia?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Awesome. Up next, find out who's more competitive, doctors or writers. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Interloop Radio.
We turn now to a little game of trivia. I
love trivia.
I spent way too many hours doing research for
I
this game.
bet you did, yeah.
Den, are you ready for some trivia? It's going to be you against Courtney. Okay.
Ooh,
Oh,
okay.
God.
All right.
I'm already like, Courtney, you're gonna win. I'm so bad at
No,
trivia, but it's
not
fun.
fun.
I have so much fun.
All right. This is my favorite question. So,
Okay.
which of these magazines is the most
Wait,
selective?
hold on. What are the rules? Do we have to like buzz in or how does
No,
this go?
no. You
Okay.
both give your opinion.
Okay,
And
okay.
honestly, you can collaborate if you want to.
Okay.
It's
All
fine.
right. Great.
So which of these magazines is the most selective? A, Science magazine, which is a peer-reviewed journal.
Oh, I'm well aware.
B, The Sun magazine,
Oh,
which, as you know, is the
fun.
nonfiction magazine. Okay. C, Journal of the American Medical Association. Or D, they're all about the same.
Oh.
Wow.
I mean, my inclination is to say science, only because that's the world I've been living in for the past couple of years. But I'm like, what is their index number? I'm trying to like think what I actually know. I don't know. Maybe they're all about the same.
I think I'm gonna guess also that they're all about the same because I think it could go any way.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that scientific and medical places are hard to publish in as well. So
Was it The Sun?
It's The Sun
Oh my
magazine,
God.
and by a long shot.
Wow.
oh my God, I was hoping it would be The Sun.
I know,
was hoping it would
kind
be The
of,
Sun.
right? Like,
Yeah.
Let me tell you these numbers because they are shocking. Science magazine has an 8% acceptance
Okay.
rate.
That sounds right.
The Journal of American Medical Association has a 4% acceptance
What?
rate.
That's
And The
absurd.
Sun magazine has a 0.25% acceptance rate.
0.25.
Wow. I mean, I knew it was tough, but I didn't know it was that tough.
Wow.
That's amazing. I love The Sun. Like, I
I
think
do
they're such a great
too.
journal.
Yeah,
They publish
they are
incredible
great.
work.
they really
Yeah,
do.
they do. It's like the
Yeah.
only magazine that I've actually, like physical magazine that I stay subscribed to.
Yeah,
And like still get in the
'cause
mail.
it's beautiful.
And then I pass them off to my mom. We like
Yeah,
share, you know.
nice.
Oh my God, that's so sweet.
All right. So if you didn't like that one, you're not going to like this one. All right. So the average acceptance rate of major literary magazines is close to 1%. They all kind of clock in around 1%.
Wow.
But I want you to rank the following magazines from least to most selective. Okay. And this is
Okay.
according to Duotrope, which
Least.
is not
So hardest to publish in to easier to publish in.
easiest to hardest.
Easiest.
Okay.
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 Sundog Lit,
Sure.
Boulevard,
Okay.
the Kenyon Review, Plowshares, and the Threepenny Review.
Is Threepenny still published?
I think so. We could take them out if they're not.
No.
Okay. I'm gonna guess that Sundog is the easiest.
Yeah, that's yeah.
And I'm gonna guess that Plowshares is the hardest.
Or Kenyon Review.
I'm gonna put Canon Review just below Plowshares,
Yeah,
but they're probably
okay.
close.
Close.
And then what are the others
Yeah,
again?
what were the other options?
Boulevard and Threepenny Review.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna guess Three Pennies a little.
A little harder than Boulevard?
I don't know.
I don't know.
think it could be Boulevard and then Threepenny. It could be.
Actually, part of me wants to put Boulevard like at the top because almost like they were just to be like
I mean,
that
this is
extreme,
the
you know,
thing.
like
It
this is
could
the thing.
be. It could be. Like, there are surprising things all the time.
Right.
I'm
No, I'm with
just gonna
you
guess.
on this one, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say maybe Boulevard. So I'm gonna guess Sundog, and then Threepenny, and then Boulevard, and then Kenyon Review, and then Plowshares, and that's going least selective to most selective.
Yeah.
I'm guessing
I'm gonna just flip the last two and go
Kenyon and Plowshares.
yeah,
So Plowshares and then Kenyon is the most.
as the most. Yeah.
Okay. So the Kenyon Review is the most selective at 0.14%. 0.14. 0.14.
Wow.
Got it.
Just to
Insane.
really drive that number home, it's
Uh-huh.
not 1%, it's 0.14.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then the second most selective is the Threepenny Review.
Okay.
Yep.
Den's like, what?
Listeners can't see Den's face, but her mouth is wide open with shock.
Wow. I mean, I love Three Penny, and they're
Yeah.
iconic, and they've been around for a long
For a
time.
long
But I
time.
always think of plowshares as like,
The one.
like
Yeah.
Well, continue to be shocked because Boulevard comes next, and then Plowshares, and then Sundoglet.
Okay.
wow.
Plowshares has a 0.39%.
All right. Well, I feel a
So
little better
almost
about
a
that,
0.5%.
right?
None of these are easy to get into.
No, exactly.
They're all still under 1%.
They're all
Let's just
still
be clear.
like,
Yeah.
like this is the elite.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
so that's wild.
Right?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm a secret mathematician. I love messing with numbers.
Oh.
I spent way too much time putting those numbers
I pay people to do that for me.
All
Wow.
right, here comes an easier one. True or false? You're more likely to be struck by lightning than to win a writing contest with a major publication.
True, fucking for sure. Yeah.
I think true. I think
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
False.
What?
Your chances of winning a contest with a major publication is anywhere from 1 in 3,000
Oh, okay. Well, there's a range
to 1 in 5,000.
You're not comparing apples to apples.
Whereas
here.
you have a 1 in 15,000 chance of getting struck by lightning.
I don't know.
Wow.
I
But
don't
I
know.
love that
Where
you
are
guys
these
went there
numbers
because
coming
I went
from?
there too. I was like, definitely I'm getting struck by
Yeah,
lightning.
definitely the lightning.
Well,
like,
here's the thing:
100%.
you get struck by lightning, and then you can write about it and win
then-
the contest.
and then
And
win a
then when,
contest.
yes,
Yeah.
that's
Like-
perfect.
Yeah.
That's absolutely perfect.
Okay.
Okay, last one. So I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a writer. His name is Clifford Gartsang, and he assembled a list of the 238 literary journals that have had at least one story reprinted or mentioned by the Pushcart Press.
Okay.
Process that. Okay.
Okay.
Then he ranked them with a crazy
Oh my
point
God.
system he came up with.
No.
The only other writer who likes math more than me, awarding points for like according to how many reprints they had, how many mentions, and the recency.
They do that in academic stuff all the time.
Yeah,
They're like,
they're like,
it's
which one
agent-
is most
yeah,
likely
yeah,
to give you a Pushcart Prize nomination or whatever. Okay, so I would like you to name any one of the top 5 best journals for each genre, because they're different for each genre.
Right.
So any one of the top 5 for nonfiction.
This is open ended.
Hmm.
They're not.
I mean-
they're not obscure. They're the ones you know.
I know. I just haven't been in the submission game.
I mean, for nonfiction, I would guess maybe The Sun, actually.
Okay,
Just because they're iconic.
correct. The Sun
Great.
is number 3.
Okay.
What about you?
For fiction, I might guess One Story.
Yes, number 2.
Oh,
Top
see,
2.
it's good that you're in this industry.
I'm like finally showing my knowledge. For poetry, I'm
Poetry.
less knowledgeable.
Ooh. The New England Review.
That's a good guess for poetry, I think. I
I
might
know
guess
it's no.
Blackbird.
Nope.
No.
Uh,
What about Poetry Magazine?
Yes.
Oh, well.
Poetry Magazine's number
okay.
2.
Okay. That makes
Actually,
sense.
Kenyon Review is the number
I was
1
gonna say
magazine
that
for poetry.
For
Yeah.
poetry.
For poetry.
I would
Oh,
have said
wow.
for
Yeah.
for-
The
Yeah, I
number
would
1
guess
for
for
poetry is Kenyon Review. The number 1 for fiction is Conjunctions, which I
Oh.
was
That makes
surprised
sense.
by.
I should have known. Yeah, if I had thought of conjunctions, I might have remembered that. That would make sense.
What
And
about
the number
nonfiction?
1 for nonfiction is Orion.
Really?
See, you knew one.
No, so
You're being
well, it's just funny
coy.
because they're so. I mean, they're more narrowly focused. I mean, they do
Yeah.
like
That's true.
nature and eco and environment. Like that's in my realm of
Right.
writing. So it's funny to see that like,
Yeah.
more
Niche.
niche.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What's number
Yeah.
1?
cool.
Well, there you
That's
have it.
fascinating. That's fun. This is fun.
Learn something new every day
Well,
with the
thanks.
Interloop
It
Radio.
makes me feel like the 4 hours I spent on that trivia was worth it.
What percentage of your day did you spend? Anyway, no.
Yeah.
I-
Anyway, thank you. Thank you for playing with us.
so
Den.
good to chat
Oh,
with you.
so fun, so fun.
yeah.
And that's our show. We will be back next Monday with an inspiration takeover,
Awesome.
where a local writer takes over the podcast to give us an intimate look at their writing process.
So you don't have to hear just like our voices all the
all
time.
the time.
If you would like to learn more about the Inner Loop and all of our programming, please visit us at theinnerlooplit.org, where you can also, donate to support us and local literature. You can follow us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Inner Loop.
Don't sound so tired about socials. Okay,
The socials.
That's where
I've
people
like
connect.
I know, but like I've really slowly been in my personal life.
Before the
doing,
show, listeners, Courtney was talking about how old she's getting, and she's just demonstrating
I'm just in
that.
my feels these days.
Today's episode was produced by me, Rachel Kuntz. Our theme music is by Andrew Logan, and our technical advisor is James Skinner. Thanks again to Denne Michele Norris for joining us on the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, submit your feedback for a chance to win $1 million.
Rachel, that's false advertising. Listeners, that's not true. But better than that, you could leave us a review.
Such as the Inner Loop Radio has a 98% acceptance rate. So it's a can't lose situation.
Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe.
Subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Happy writing.
Right on, Litwith.